ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Patrick Sutherland, and I welcome you to Kugel's Castle, coming from the dying Earth at the end of time, 7 billion years beyond your time, the time of you people in the 21st century. Pardon me if I'm not quite myself tonight. The sun's been doing strange things today. It's making everybody sick. In my last broadcast, I told you about how the machine, what kind of people the machine dug up, warriors and soldiers. And looked like the Zell were up to no good, and we were basically prisoners. Revived these lab specimens for their curiosities, which didn't appear to be very scientific, appeared to be pretty barbaric, as a matter of fact. But overall, it looked like we had to do something about it, and I told you we came through and there was weapons available and we could speak to each other. And there was another factor in play. When the machine brings you back, even though I'm having a bad day today because the sun's doing things, anti-existence things, but when it doesn't, everybody seems to feel pretty good because the machine brings you back according to original factory spec. If they get a positive reproduction, you come back 100%. You come back somewhere between 30 and 50 years old. I was very old when I died, but since I've been reassembled, the machine does quantum physics involved that seem like magic, where it somehow traces molecular motion back through time and on, and the material that surrounds you in your death, somehow everything, all of your molecules and atoms and the patterns of those atoms winding backwards, some kind of a parallax view, like a reversed explosion and implosion. The machine's able to trace this back and bring it all back. So it brings you back to original factory spec with your complete memory engrams of your entire life, but your body's younger. I found myself able to do things I haven't been able to do since I was much younger, and I don't mean the 7 billion years that are intervening between my broadcast and the time that you people are alive. Anyway, I can do things that I couldn't do since I was much younger. And the result is everybody here, a couple thousand people are here with young bodies and old brains, and a young body drives you. It's full enzymes and hormones, and it drives you, and it won't book any retreats, it won't suffer any diminishments, and so you're automatically instilled with hope. And you know, if you're a man, it's temerity and testosterone. It's this situation that you find yourself in, even though there's great fear because they're obviously light years ahead of us, and they were capable of doing whatever pretty much they wanted to us, at least in the beginning. And so we have these young bodies with these old brains and hopes sprang eternal, and we had soldiers and we had warriors. The Zell kept digging them up, of course, and they brought them in. They was in these pens now. Everybody was a cross-section of human history from like the pharaonic times up through the 21st century. There was nobody beyond the 21st century at this point that anybody was aware of. I myself am probably the last batch, one of the oldest, the youngest batches produced, say that. Anyway, we had no implements, no supplies, no sanitary facilities in the pens, but they gradually came as a gift of the machine. This is a gift of the machine. I know it's frowned upon back in my time. It wasn't when I was a boy, but it became frowned upon as I grew older, and it became almost a black market thing. But at any rate, this is billions of years later, and you can't do anything about it anyway. It's a taste of home, and it's a beautiful thing. Marlboro, Zippo, Pepsi, all gifts to the machine. A little taste of home, even on a bad day. So we had all these warrior types, and we were planning. We were able to speak to each other. There were some of us who had common reference points, though not many. I will mention names at this time. To begin with, in addition to myself, there were other Americans. There was Captain Rob Johnson and the remains of his company that died in ambush in the Taiwan Straits intervention, which hasn't happened yet in your time. We had some cowboys from the 19th century and 1880s. Tory and Fitz and Ringo and Richie. They were good old boys. Died in a range war ambush, dry gulchers back in the 1880s. They'd do anything we asked of them. They could ride and they could shoot, and they proved to be very brave and helped us out in a big way. We had some Brits, Commander Julian Battle Bray, a bunch of ratings from HMS Repulse, went down off Malaysia in December 1941. And speaking English, being from English-speaking countries, we had common reference points, but the rest of the members of my pen were very exotic, much more exotic. And our pen, ultimately, we called it Alpha Pen because we became the Alpha Pen. You know, the machine didn't bring up famous people. It's hard to find famous people in history. A lot of the names I'll name are just obscure people, but I have to mention Alcibiades, my pen, Athenian Greek. If you read your Greek history, you'll find out a lot about him. He was a real rascal. He's a great friend now, an ally. He came along with a bunch of Athenian sailor marines, I guess you'd call them. And there was a Roman, Marcus Titanius Marcellus, died in the German frontier with his cohort around him, fighting to recover the lost standards, the legions lost by Varus at the time of Octavian, Augustus Caesar. Fought under the Emperor Tiberius, who was his uncle, and he was able to retrieve, I understand he retrieved it, helped retrieve the lost standards. Germanicus was his general, and Germanicus was the nephew of Tiberius, and Germanicus went home for a triumph and somehow became sick and died. Apparently Uncle Tiberius didn't want Germanicus to continue his successful military operations and fame in Germany, and so therefore after that, ideas of Rome assimilating Germany were abandoned. Turning point in history. Enough of the history lesson though, sorry, I digress. And there was an Aztec warrior by the name of Quinquanata and a bunch of his braves who proved exceptionally useful to us. Well, this is not to say that there weren't women, guys, people, ladies and gentlemen. There was almost at least 50% of our population were women, and not to worry, ladies, in the end, the women proved every bit as courageous and ferocious and intelligent and cunning and useful as men did, although they weren't brought forth as warriors. Not all of them. One did in my cell. Her name was Alana Washko. She was Jewish Army intelligence. Died at the hands of Islamic extremists during the Fourth Jewish-Arabic War, which has not occurred yet in your time. But at any rate, in Alpha section, we had a pretty unique collection of tough, experienced veteran soldiers. And so we were hard put to make a plan. It was Lana that finally made up the plan. It looked like it would work, and we were getting ready to set it up because the Zell were definitely up to no good. And she was minted with a chip on her shoulder, and that girl did have the plan. Alcibiades said Athena inspired her. Well, that's how the Greeks talk. Anyway, we're ready to put our little plan to work. And in the next broadcast, I'll tell you how we did it. I'm a little short of time tonight. So from Kugel's Castle, on the dying earth, the end of time, this is John Patrick Sutherland, the last man, the last place, the last moment with the last word. Watch for my 5th broadcast.